Hare Krishna, everybody. See a few familiar faces out there. This is our this 20th day, on this 20th day of March 2016 in San Diego. We'll be studying today from the Bhagavad Gita as it is on this Sunday feast. And I thought we would go right to the essence, which is in the 18th chapter, entitled The Conclusion, Perfection of Renunciation. And in this chapter, Krishna winds everything up, and near the end of his instructions, he repeats a verse that he spoke earlier in the 9th chapter. And he says, as a wind-up to the beginning of this verse, or introduction, because you are my very dear friend, O Arjuna, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. So we're going to study this verse and 65 and 66, and we'll explore that today. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Many of you know this verse. You can repeat it after me. Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mamai Vashyasi Satyam Te Pratijani Priyosi Me. Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph here, the purport, Srila Prabhupada's commentary. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he or she will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. And then Krishna's final instruction here. Sarva dharmam parityaja Mamekam sharanam vraja Aham tvam sarva papebhyo Mokshayasyami ma shuchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Dipsiptic succession. So in these two verses, Krishna summarizes, really he gives the essence of his instructions in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is also known as Gita Upanishad because it condenses all the essential philosophical knowledge of the Upanishads. And it's widely understood to be a blueprint or a complete lesson for especially us in this age. It's part of the larger Mahabharata. It's 18 chapters, and Mahabharata is huge. This is like 700 verses. Mahabharata is 100,000 verses long. And it is said that Vyasadeva, he wrote that Mahabharata for those who will, in this age, Kali Yuga, who really weren't able to study the Vedas. They're not qualified, and basically we can't pay attention long enough. You know, it's so confused. This is one of the natures of this age. There's so much confusion and so much dissension and so much quarrel that it's very hard to be very peaceful and have a very, very calm mind, which is necessary for studying these high literatures. So the Mahabharata has all kinds of fascinating stories. Everybody likes stories. And they often have a very important lesson. And within all those stories, you find this essential philosophical lesson. So everything is here in the Bhagavad Gita in seed form, and then it's expanded in other literatures such as Bhagavat Purana. Bhagavat Purana is really the full foundation of all of the philosophy and practices of this Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, otherwise known as Harekrishna movement, or in the modern age, International Society for Krishna Consciousness is one main branch of it. So what is Krishna saying here? Manmana bhavamad bhakto. So I put these two into a little poem so you easily remember it. Just think of me, become devoted, worship me, and bow down low. You'll come to me, O friend. I promise you, this boon I shall bestow. Give up all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun. From anxiety be free. And these are all, there's a lot of very important instruction here. So the first thing is manmana. Now, manmana means to think of me. Absorb your mind in me. This instruction has been going on throughout the Bhagavad Gita. We find this. Even in the second chapter, which is a summary of the work, we find Krishna saying, Tani sarvani samyukta asita matpara. This is where he first explains in the 63rd or 62nd verse of the second chapter, I believe, and right around there. And he's saying that all the senses, Tani sarvani samyukta asita matpara, should be engaged in my service. This is the first place where Krishna mentions himself as the object of meditation in the Bhagavad Gita. So that means all the senses include the mind. The mind is the center of all the senses. The mind directs the senses. Go here, look at that. That's not interesting. Don't look over there. Look over there. This is an object of pleasure. Let me go there. And the intelligence department is telling you how you can follow it, how you can achieve your goal of enjoyment, you know. Or, conversely, to get free of pain. There's two sides. So, but here he's saying that this essential Vedic or yogic principle, think of me. The first thing is to place the mind on Krishna. Now, in the 6th chapter, it was all about that, right? Now, Prabhupada says here, one should not become an official meditator, right? Meaning that the process mentioned in the 6th chapter, which is officially Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga means 6 limbs. Or, excuse me, 8 limbs, I'm sorry, 8 limbs, of gradually bringing one up to absorption in the Supreme, known as samadhi, right? Concentration, meditation, and samadhi. But preliminarily, there are so many do's and don'ts. There's that famous asana principle of being able to sit. And if your body is too unregulated, then you do hatha yoga, make it very strong and very, very balanced so you can sit. And the famous pranayama, to calm the mind and also make the body very strong, right? Pranayama. Then pratyahara means to withdraw the senses from the sense objects. Not so easy. That's why Krishna says, go off to the cave. You got to be completely alone, you know, and a sacred place, very quiet, traditionally Himalayas or some jungle redoubt, you know. So you could be alone and work on controlling those senses and controlling the mind, withdrawal, and fixing them on me. Ultimately, he says, fix them on me, right? And this may take years to perfect that. Have you ever tried meditating? I used to do that, you know, playing around. And this was yoga. This was 1972. I started yoga. And, all right, I did my hatha yoga, did a little pranayama. Now I'm ready. I got to go to work in half an hour. That's good, you know, meditate. So many thoughts flood in, isn't it? Bring it back to the mantra, chanting the mantra. My mantra was Om. And, all right, think about it, don't think about it. This coming in, this coming. Oh, knee. What about that knee? You know, pain, it's stiff, right? It's 25 minutes already. All right, I'll cut it short this time and get ready to go to work. You know, this is the I mean, it's not easy to just forcibly withdraw the mind from all of the myriad things that are going on and fix it on something especially impersonal. It's very, very difficult. So luckily I began chanting Hare Krishna, and I found the devotees, and you know, when I met the devotees, this was a very intense point of the Hare Krishna movement. It was 1973, it was New York. There were so many wonderful kirtan leaders. You know, the beautiful Radha Govinda were there. Anyone, if you see it, you can get online to see the New York deities, very, very beautiful and attractive. So all these things were there, but actually it was sensory overload at first, because I was used to go quiet, you know, the quiet room, dark, you know, go within. And what is all this? But then when I actually learned about the process, I saw that this is the real practical process of meditation. Not to repress the senses or completely suppress them, try to control by force, but to engage. Prabhu used this famous word, dovetail, you know, this word dovetail. We want to see beautiful things. We want to taste wonderful tastes. We want to hear beautiful sounds, isn't it? All of these senses are accustomed to engage with their objects. So in Krishna consciousness, all of that is there. We see the beautiful deity forms and the wonderful artists who were there in New York when I joined, the essential artists, Jadharani, Parikit, Murli Dar. You see their work on this wall here, you see? So the beauty of Krishna's Leela, what to speak of those fascinating pastimes, you know, of Krishna, and for the intelligence of philosophy. We want to understand what this is all about, because it's very strange and is unusual. But Srila Prabhupada gave us all that. Engagement for the senses. So when Krishna says, man mana, it's not just man mana bhavamad bhakto. Think of me and become my devotee. And that process of bhakti that he mentions here, this is described in great detail by the descendants of Lord Chaitanya, whose birthday is on Tuesday. His appearance day is on Tuesday. So he who was Krishna himself, showed the science, which was then systematized by his first followers, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and those who followed them, into a perfect system which is now manifest in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So, man mana, place your mind on me, and it's the easiest thing to do, because Krishna is all attractive. It's very difficult to force yourself to think about a white light or some kind of mandala or nothing at all, you know, which is very, very impossible. But in other systems, this is what's recommended. But in Krishna consciousness, you have a multitude of things to think about in relation to Krishna, and especially his holy name. Lord Chaitanya came, Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya 550 years ago or so. 30 years ago. And it was Krishna himself showing us the practical way in this Kali Yuga to be Krishna conscious, to serve himself. Who would know a better way? It's Krishna himself showing us the best way. And the idea behind bhakti is that Krishna, he wants us to do it. The idea is that this is our natural what we call sarup, or probably say constitutional position. In Lord Chaitanya's teaching to Sanatana Goswami, who was one of these 6 Goswamis who wrote down so many books that we now follow, the first thing that Sanatana Goswami asked him is that, who am I? Why am I suffering? How did I get here? If I don't know this, what's the use of my so-called knowledge? He was a great scholar. But he was taking the role of a spiritually ignorant person and asking these questions that we should all ask to the best spiritual master there is, Krishna himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya answered, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. These immortal words. The Swarup. The Swarup is that form, your actual nature and activity that doesn't change. That's your eternal function. All the things that we do in our false identity based on this body, these are all temporary. That's the first lesson of Bhagavad Gita. The body is temporary and the soul is eternal. So if we're simply identifying with our gender, where we're born, the particular age we're born into, all of these things which are relative and ever-changing, then we haven't touched our Sarup. It's all dormant within our real Sarup. So he says, Jiva Sarup, or the Sarup, or the actual constitutional position of the Jiva. Jiva means the soul. Jiva is the soul in the body, the conscious principle, is to be a servant of Krishna. Now we're serving, but we're serving this false understanding of who we are. But that's all changing. Last life we could have been different gender, different nationality, different species, yeah? Whole different environment. And in that body, we totally identify with that. That's who I am. Because we don't know. We forgot the previous one. You see the problem? It's a succession of costumes. And each time we get a costume, we totally identify with the costume, and we act like that for 60, 70 years in the human form. And then it's all over. The ball is over, the costume ball, right? And get another one and start a whole new chapter. That's what the round of birth and death is all about. It's a prison house. We're going from one cell to another, but we're not getting out of the prison. So Krishna is giving us, here in Bhagavad Gita and as Lord Chaitanya, the understanding and then the means to follow the understanding to achieve liberation and that unlimited, bottomless, endless happiness that we're looking for. So he begins with this instruction, Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas, that the actual Sarup of every living entity is to serve Krishna. Otherwise you serve your senses, you serve your mind, you serve your boss, you serve everything else but Krishna. You have to serve. And then he says, Krishnera tatasta shakti beda be prakash. This is Bengali language, the first instruction, second half of the verse. So this says who we are this energy of Krishna, conscious energy. God has all unlimited energies. There's no way of understanding the Supreme without understanding the energies. And so we are marginal energy. It means that we're conscious beings, but we're very, very, very small, atomic. And so even though we have Krishna's qualities in minute degree, we can be covered and overwhelmed by the material energy, the illusory energy, which is another energy, lower energy, which we see all around us. So when we turn away from Krishna, we become prone, we become overwhelmed with the external energy. And then we get this material body, one after another, and we live this life in forgetfulness. We can't break that relation, but we forget. So Bhakti Yoga is the process of reforming or purifying our consciousness. So we once again are in our constitutional position, and we're happy and peaceful forever. So Manmanab, first think of me, chant my holy name, and become my devotee. Bhakti is a reciprocation of devotion. If you become Krishna's devotee, he becomes your devotee. That's right in the books. Ye yatam apapadyante, tam sataiva bhajamyaham. Bhajami is what we do. We worship, right? This is bhajan. But Krishna says, bhajami, I worship. I reciprocate with everyone, however they approach me. Every single living being. Now, those who are ignorant of Krishna's personal form, they're fully conscious of Krishna's external form, this material world. Don't we have to absorb our mind in it in order to make our way in this world? Right? There's so many things we have to do. Well, we're serving the energy. We're thinking of the external energy, and we're reacting to it, and we're trying to bring some of it into our control, trying to avoid other dangers. This is absorbed. So Krishna responds in that way, so that we're fully convinced that there's no God in control. It's just me in this world. This is reality. How could it not be? Total ignorance, is it? Ye yatama tam tataipa bhajamyaham. Mama vartmana vattanti manushyak partha sarvasha, the fourth chapter. Everyone, every living entity follows my path in all ways. But that path doesn't all lead back to Goloka Vrindavan. The path can lead into more and more involvement in this material energy. So in the human form, we have a choice to make. We alone, in all of the species of life, over 8 million species, can make the free choice to take up this verse, take up the instruction. Become Krishna's devotee. What does that mean? It means to hear the words of Krishna. It means to associate with devotees, especially those who are pure devotees, who are representatives of Krishna in this world. One can do that very easily by simply reading the books of Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He came as an emissary from the spiritual world, and he was inspired by Krishna and Lord Chaitanya as a spiritual master to make the incredible heroic effort of coming to America and planting these seeds of bhakti. And he found, after some time, with great austerity, the trip itself. I was just reading a wonderful article. We have a magazine, by the way, called Back to Godhead magazine. It's every 2 months it comes out. I used to work on it in the 1970s, so I'm a subscriber. And it just came out, or I just got my copy anyway. And Nagaraj Prabhu, who's been the editor-in-chief since the mid-'80s, he writes a nice little essay at the end of each one. And he was describing, because it's 50 years, it's now the 50th anniversary, everything, and this year we're gearing toward that 50th anniversary. So Srila Prabhupada, last August, 50 years ago, last August, he got on the ship and came to America, landed, what is it, the 18th, 19th of September in Boston, and he came down to New York. But that trip itself was so hard. Why did he do that? For us. He didn't do it to make name and fame or money or anything like that. He was 69 years old. He was perfectly happy. You know, he could have retired in Vrindavan. He was already living there. But he had the inspiration and the order of a spiritual master and of Lord Chaitanya. In every town and village, my name will be chanted. Well, there's an awful lot of towns and villages in the United States that had never heard of Lord Chaitanya or Krishna. And they wouldn't have if Prabhupada hadn't got on that boat. They'd come all the way over here on it wasn't like an ocean liner. It wasn't a cruise ship. It was a cargo ship with one little cabin. And you can imagine it, you know, difficult. 69-year-old Bengali man, never been on the ocean before. So he came over, and only after 8-9 months was he really able to get a foothold in the Lower East Side of Manhattan and start everything. Now, what happened then? You know, I love to listen to those old lectures, you know, the ones that were recorded in 1966 in the summer. And Prabhupada is just so excited. You know, you can hear the energy and excitement in his voice as he finally has a receptive audience. And they're chanting, and they're trying to follow him. And he knows that some of them are actually going to become strong in Krishna consciousness. And they're all young. You know, they're all under 30. And they're going to go, you know, and this is what happened. They went to the West Coast, and they then around and gradually all over the world. So what did they do? They chanted Hare Krishna. That's the first thing. Hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, this is one of the mysteries, or mystical truths of this process, is that in this particular mantra especially, and in this holy name in general, Krishna has invested these potencies. Nam Nam Akadi, Bahuda, Nijasarva Shaktis, Tatra Pita, Niyamitak Smaranena Kala. So this is a great mercy for us. What Lord Chaitanya himself is saying, as you know, in the mood of a devotee, he's saying, "Oh, my dear Lord, Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? Yet I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name." So he's taking the role of someone who's conditioned. So what deep meaning there is in that? There's no logic to this. That these sounds, these names, Krishna, Govinda, Hare, Rama, that they possess a potency that's been invested by Krishna and Govinda and Rama. So that if you chant them, if you hear, you undergo a transformation. It doesn't work with any name. Prabhupada says, you try chanting John, 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 you don't get it. Or Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, Coca. Some people say, oh, it's just a sound. No, it's not that. Sounds have different effects. You know, I haven't been able to listen to pop music since I joined. But hasn't it gotten worse? Oh my God. I mean, the thing is, the modes of nature are there in everything, in the food, in the art, in the music, in the clothes, in the fashion, everything. And so you listen to that music, and what happens? Your consciousness is transformed. That's why people listen to music, but not for the better. You'll get more in the mode of ignorance, more prone to anger and lust, right? But if you listen to certain music, even material music, they're in the mode of goodness, right? Some flute concerto or something, Mozart. I used to play Mozart when I was a kid. It's uplifting, but it's not transcendental. This sound, and any song related to Krishna, but especially this holy name, has the potency to immediately purify the mind. And the reason is, we understand, because Krishna is absolute, God is absolute. If he's omnipotent, how can we say, no, he can't? As soon as you say, no, God can't, you're in ignorance. Omnipotent means he has powers beyond our conception. You have to accept that. So one of the powers is that he places himself in that holy name, fully. And when you chant Hare Krishna, doesn't matter whether you even know anything. You can even be a meat eater, you chant, or any other sinful activity, but you're chanting, you're hearing. Then Krishna is present in that name. Now, he's understood to be present and felt to be present. The more pure you are, the pure devotees actually experience fully Krishna's presence in that name. But it's available to all. We're not asking any fee. No one paid any. There's no, turnstile at the door here. And here's the holy name. And here's the Hare Krishnas, right? We'll teach you how to chant. It's free, So that's the best way to think of Krishna. And become his devotee. Regularly chant. There's a whole process. Those of us who have taken the process seriously, yes, there's a regulation, regime, and there's discipline. But isn't it true of anything you want to achieve that's any worth in this world? If you want to get a degree, a job, or anything, some skill, you have to work at it. You have to find someone who knows, a teacher, who'll tell you, do it this way, don't do that. Do's and don'ts. Yam niyam. Just like in yoga. So that's the process. And the advantage is that everything becomes sweeter and sweeter. This chanting of the holy name. What do we hear from the great acharyas? This is Sanatana Goswami. I don't know if I shared this with you before, but it's ever fresh. So he has this book called the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. The Bhagavatamrita means the essence of Bhagavatam. He's given it in a relatively shorter work, the essence of the teachings of Bhagavatam. Very wonderful, available from the BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So right at the beginning, he has some wonderful introductory verses, and one of them is about the holy name, his experience of the holy name. Jayati Jayati Namananda Rupam Murare. That's the first line. Oh glories to this name, Namananda Rupam, which is the very form of Ananda. Ananda and Sukha are different things. Sukha can come from sense pleasure. That's Sukha. It comes and goes. Wherever you have the Sukha, there's the Dukkha. Right? They go together. Sukha, Dukkha, it's almost the same word. But Ananda is spiritual happiness. It doesn't diminish. It's ever increasing because it's the spirit. The spirit doesn't change, right? But your ability to contact the senses with the sense objects and the ability of the senses to enjoy is limited. You can burn them out, right? The more intense the pleasure, the more the burnout is. In other words, the pain. Not so for Ananda. So he says, Namananda Rupam. Now, what did he have materially? These Goswamis. Just understand. As little as you can possibly have to live. They didn't have their own clothes. They got the rejected clothes. They didn't have any house. They would live under a tree. They practically didn't eat. They would, they didn't sleep. They slept 1.5 hours a day, and sometimes not even that. And eating whatever they could gather, a little bit here and there. Raghunath Das Goswami decreased every other day a handful of butter or buttermilk. You can imagine. And he lived to a ripe old age. This is high. So what were they living on? They're living on this, the holy name, chanting 100,000 names, about 7-8 hours a day at least, sometimes much more. Writing, beautiful verses, beautiful description of the highest pleasure of loving Krishna in different moods. This is reality. So that's the Ananda. And when he says, chanting this, you stop all material activities. Nija dharma dhyana pujari yatnam. Worshipping other gods, meditation, impersonal meditation, even the duties in your own life that have no relationship to Krishna, they're also given up. And then he says, chant it even once by someone. It brings liberation, gets rid of so many what we call sinful reactions, reactions to previous activities which are binding us. This is how karma works. It's eradicated by chanting the holy name. Padamamamitamekam is my soul and supreme nectar and my only ornament for my life, he's saying. This is one of many, many. This is how he's experiencing the holy name. So there's many, many descriptions like that in our Shastra or books of how the great devotees are experiencing. But the important is we can also experience like that if we become purified, if we become advanced in devotional service. So he says, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. Bow down to me. This is such a big thing. You know, devotees bow down 20, 30, 40 times a day, you know, think nothing of it. Because this is a natural thing, but it's a big deal. Prabhupada, there's a lecture where he had, and one boy at the end of the lecture says, I'm not bowing down. No way. Everyone's bowing down. I don't bow down to anybody, you know. So Prabhupada explained, you'll eventually be forced to bow down. Everyone gets sick. Eventually you're lying down, right? You have to bow down. You have to bow down to the force of nature and time. So the question is, whatever energy we have, whatever intelligence we have, we should apply it to understanding this science of Krishna consciousness. It really is. It's just like through the looking glass in a way. It's reversed. And this is what about, like Krishna says at the beginning of 15th chapter, we're studying now in our evening class. You're all invited. 7 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, although this is a special week. Monday, I'll give class. Tuesday, we have Gaur Pranim. Wednesday, I go on a 2-week trip. So when I come back, we'll start again with the evening classes. But we're in the 15th chapter, and at the beginning, Krishna compares this world to an upside-down banyan tree. Have you ever seen a really big banyan tree? They can grow almost like a big forest, isn't it? Because they put out the branches, and those branches put out roots. And then they grow more branches and more roots. So in this way, there's like no real limit to how long it can be. So this whole universe is like a big banyan tree. And the little twigs are the sense objects, and the branches are the Vedic hymns. And we're entangled in it. We're thinking, if I can just get to that branch, I'll be successful. Hey, okay, I get to that branch, and then you're still entangled in the tree. Now, why upside down? Because it's explained in the commentary. If you're out on the bank of a very cool, very calm pool, and on the other side there's a tree growing right on the bank, you'll see the reflection, and it's reversed, right? So this world is a reflection of the spiritual world. This is a dream world. This is hard to accept because we've been living in the dream. When you're in the dream, you think it's real, right? And so does everyone else that you've created in that dream. They can convince you it's real. But when you wake up, you realize, oh, it was just a dream. That's what this is. And that's why it's so ephemeral, right? Nothing stays. It's called Bhavasagara, the world of becoming. That's really what it means. But we want the Brahman world, the world of no more becoming, where we're at the eternal stage, where there's no old age, disease, or death. There's no future. There's no past. There's just the eternal present. This is described by Lord Brahma. I'll just give you a little, I think in shlokas, forgive me. It says, Shriya kanta kanta padama padusha kalpatatato druma bhumis chinda managana mahi toyam amritam kata ganam natyam gamanam abhivangshi priyasaki chadanandam jyoti padama vitata svajapapicha. There's another verse, I'll give you just the English. So here, Lord Brahma, who is the creator of this universe, and he's known as Vidhi, means he knows all the Vedas. He's a repository of knowledge. So he's speaking this at the end of his Govinda prayers, a hymn. And now he's describing the spiritual world, our home. So he says, Shriya Kanta Kanta Padama Purusha. That the supreme lover there, Kanta, is the supreme personality of Godhead. And the goddess of fortune is his consort. consorts. Kanda, Kanta, Padamapurusha, Kalpataravo, Dhruma. All the trees there are desire trees. Desire trees means, here we have trees that can produce apples and mangoes over here, plums, peaches there. But you have to wait for the season, right? And you can get them more a certain maybe a month, 1 or 2 months, and you have to wait another year, whatever. So there you can get as many fruits, varieties of fruits that are perfectly ripe in any season, all the time, to offer to Krishna, and then take the remnants. This is the Kalpataru. Bhumi is not just land or earth, but it's made of these Chintamani gems, which are special jewels that are alive. Chinta means conscious, and very beautiful. Bhumi's Chintamani gana mahi toyam amritam. All the water is nectar, all the walking is dancing, all the talking is singing, and one can always hear Krishna's dear flute in the distance. And then everything is glowing with spiritual effulgence. Here, we're the living entities, but we're surrounded by matter, each one of us, right? Everything is material. There, everything is glowing with the spiritual effulgence, and you can taste the nectar. And there are so many cows, very blissful cows, Surabhi cows. They're very happy, and they're emitting milk as they walk. They're so blissful. And not a second passes away. Everything is the present. Nobody gets old there. So this is just a little description. There's much more detail. But Brahma is revealing that reality. You see. And what is this? This is a pale reflection of it, right? We wish the water would be nectar. We're lucky if you can drink it now. Isn't it? Flint, Who knows what putting in the water. You have to have the filter, right? Get the bottled water. That's not good either for the landfill. It's just like, it's a world of pollution. Not just the earth, but the water, the food, the ether, the sound, the ether. Trump. Sorry, I polluted the atmosphere. But so much anger, right? So much. We're having an election, right? In November. And we're gonna end up with a choice of Putana and Poundraka. It's the Putana-Poundraka election. Take your pick. Think about it. This is the advancement of civilization. It's obviously the degradation, you see? And it all comes to the sound, polluting the airwaves, the internet, Tower of Babel. The ether is polluted. When the ether is polluted, the intelligence polluted, everything becomes polluted. Krishna's consciousness is just the opposite, purification, purifying the heart. So we can create our own little environment in our house, in our mind, so we can be forces for purity. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even though you're in a contaminated atmosphere, you can remain pure yourself by becoming strong in Krishna consciousness. So it comes from the Muskaru, offering one's obeisance to Krishna. And Krishna promises here, this is what's so beautiful about this verse, you are my friend. Now he's speaking to Arjuna, but we can also be like Arjuna. We're also Krishna's friend. Satyam te, it's the truth, I promise you, you'll come to me. Priyol sime, because you're dear to me. Krishna, we've always been dear to Krishna. But we're like incorrigible, we've forgotten, so we're not reciprocating. If we reciprocate a little bit of that love, a little bit of that devotion, then we can feel it coming down from Krishna. And that's what bhakti is. This way, that way. It's not worshipping some remote deity who you can never feel the presence of. And you just have faith. You can actually feel the presence of Krishna in your life. And that's what this is all about. And so the next verse, I'm sorry, I'm almost out of time here. This can't be right. 1 minute to 10. We need to get this. That's wrong. I thought they fixed that. So then he says, this is it. Sarva Dharma Vidisha. Give up all other dharma. Do this one dharma, Bhagavat Dharma, Sanatan Dharma, the eternal dharma. And surrender only unto me. I will protect you from all reactions. There's no suffering. Mahashucha. Don't worry. See that mudra? Radharani is saying. She's Krishna. Don't worry. Do not worry. Assurance, right? The world is a world of anxiety. The spiritual world is what? A Vaikuntha, the world of no anxiety, complete peace. You come home, and there's no, everything is fine now. You're back in Krishna's protective. You read the 10th canto. You read the Krishna book, right? Prabhupada's Krishna book. So many threats to Vrindavan, right? But Krishna always comes through. It doesn't look like how could he do that? He's just a little child, but he's not. He's all powerful. He takes that role to reciprocate the loving exchange of his devotees. It's very mystical and mysterious. But you can see this makes sense. If you were God, wouldn't you want to find out all the refined, intense ways that you could enjoy? But that's all in exchanges of love. That's what real enjoyment is. You know? So Krishna is also, he's encouraging, and he's making facility for us to get into the natural sarup again of bhakti, of devotional service to Krishna. So this process is here. We have so many books. Please investigate them. Chant Hare Krishna with us. We're going to chant a little bit more. Take up some beads. We have beads. The japa is also very important, because the mind, we're living with our worst enemy now. It's according to Bhagavad Gita. The uncontrolled mind that's taking you away from Krishna, that's your enemy. But we have Krishna on our side, just like Arjuna did, even though he was outnumbered. We have Krishna. And if we take shelter of our friend and the powerful holy name, which is not different from Krishna, then Maya can't touch us. But we have to do it seriously. Okay, the actual time is now 6:45. If there are any questions or comments, Krishna Murti Prabhu, I will repeat your answer. Just speak loudly for the question.
Well, no worries. I'm quite loud. Are you talking about waking up from the dream? Well, I'm here right now, but how do I know this is not a dream?
That's the problem. Said, who is crazy? Who is? You can say, who is dreaming? All right. Naturally, there's a verse for that. Just like they say, oh, there's an app for that. We say there's a verse for that. The second chapter, I always forget the actual sanda, but what is the time of awakening for the self-realized is the time of sleeping for the conditioned souls, and vice versa. So what is it? It seems like a dream to those who are deeply enmeshed in illusion. Is actually reality, and we can see. You can see the real answer to that is that the presence of realized souls in this world, who can show us by their example, not just by their philosophy, but by their example of how to live in this world free from anxiety, free from fear, and full of bliss and happiness, even in difficult circumstances. This is when I went to the temple, of course, Srila Prabhupada wasn't there. He came 2 weeks later, which is like definitely hitting the lottery. You join up. I mean, many devotees, they never saw Prabhupada. If you joined in South America, you went to Mexico once or something. But anyway, but even before that, I could see the devotees. That's what attracts you. These were my compatriots. They were the same age as I was, But I could see they had found something, and it was worth investigating. And it's obvious that, okay, so you have two competing views of reality. Well, what is the end point, or what is the real nature of just living what is known as reality, the ordinary life? Okay, clearly you can see and you can experience for ourselves. There is so much anxiety, so much fear. There are so many extreme pains. There's no sense that you're coming to the point of deep, lasting peace in your life. Because what you're putting your faith in is clearly changeable. One verse, yasyatma buddhi kunapeti dhatake. It's such an illuminating verse. This verse is spoken by Krishna in the 10th chapter, 10th canto, excuse me. And he's saying that anyone, very strong words, he's saying anyone who identifies with the body, which is after all, I mean, who can deny it? A bag full of bones, blood, pus, and all kinds of other unmentionable things. If you think, that's me, nobody wants to think, that's me, right? But that's what we're doing. We're acting on that basis. Then it's simply as the mentality of a donkey, basically. You know? So that's reality. And when you've been in this world, you know, even a few years, you can see that there was a great deal of promise, but the fulfillment is not there. It's a big change-up. It's like, you know, like they get you in the store with an advertisement, and then it's not there, and you want to sell you something more. You know, this is what Maya does. So on our own, by our own logic and by hearing the philosophy and seeing the devotees, you can see that this makes sense. That there must be some source that has everything that we have, but more. Where does our personality come from? Where does our sense of love and loving exchange? If it doesn't exist in the Supreme, how does it exist within us? Now you can create some philosophy that it rose up out of the primeval muck, but that's even more unbelievable than that it was created from above. So the answer is you can't prove it, but you can experience it. You can certainly experience it enough to get the faith to try the process. And as soon as you start chanting Hare Krishna with some concentration, immediately there's something going on. You can feel a lot of the anxiety and the worry and attachments falling away if you do it seriously, even for a week, Prabhu says. So the answer is by your own experience, but mostly by hearing from realized sages and from other devotees. That's the only way. It's not, you can't prove it by QED, by logic. It's beyond that. Any other comment, question at this time? If not, I'm going to regale you with a couple of poems because we have a little time. And my voice is hoarse, so I can't go for a whole 20 minutes. I can go for 15 minutes. So this is these poems are based on the paintings, which are based on the books. So really, this is just pastimes from Krishna's Leela. So one is everybody's favorite Leela, you know, Krishna's child of Leela. So he says, this is Mother Yashoda chasing after Krishna. Let's see. At last Yashoda caught her little child, who had smashed a pot of yogurt in a peak. Though seemingly annoyed, she felt beguiled by little Krishna's loving charm, unique. Oh, imp, look up that word. It's perfect for Krishna in Vrindavan. Oh, imp, I've caught you now. But do not fear. You see, I've thrown the stick upon the floor. But I must bind you with these ropes, my dear, lest you increase your mischief more and more. And so Yashoda bound her little son, who hid his glory to evoke her love. The blessings she enjoyed are never won by gods and goddesses who dwell above. So that's my little poem. It's a little out of season, but Krishna is for every season. We have a few more minutes, so I'll give you a few more poems. Now this is from the Shikshastika. Shikshastika, our Lord, is very appropriate. Lord Chaitanya's appearance day is 2 days away. And he wrote these eight verses in which the whole philosophy is concentrated, the whole practice and the goal of chanting Krishna's holy name. So I'll give you the first verse. In the first verse, these 7 metaphors describe the progressive benefits of chanting Hare Krishna. Very important verse. Chaito Darbana Marjanam. All glories to the chanting of Sri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal. The chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention, as I earnestly request, please chant Sri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The flooding nectar of the names will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. There you have it. Hare Krishna. One more, and we'll get to 7 o'clock. So this is, I gave you the next verse, which was Lord Chaitanya in the mood of a conditioned soul. So he says, Nam Nama Kadi Bahudani to Sarva Shaktis. Says, Krishna, Govinda, and Keshava too, your names have no end, and in each of them you have invested your potencies, leaving none out. Whenever we want, we can chant them without the slightest restriction of time or of place. O Lord, who can fathom your infinite grace? Yet I am so wretched, devoid of all shame, that I haven't developed a taste for your name. Now the next verse is said to be the most important of the 8, actually. We should string it around our neck, those of us who are devotees practicing. Lord Chaitanya says, Krishna's Gavira says. This is how to develop that taste. So much so that you can chant constantly. Meaning, manmana, you can always remember Krishna. Ananyastintiyanoma. And here's the verse. Trinadapi sunichena, tarodapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniyak sadaharihi. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, to think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant his name incessantly until the final hour. So this is that verse. Anyone who wants these poems, you can write to me. I can tell you. It's very important to remember that. Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To feel oneself helpless in this world is calling out to Krishna, please save me. Don't let me forget you. Put me as an atom at your lotus feet. You know, for so many births, millions and millions of Brahma's lifetimes, I've forgotten you, and I've been in this world trying to enjoy, trying to conquer, being defeated. Now I realize there's no hope but you. So humble, you know, and not wanting any honor, which is just poison for a devotee. Runs from. We just had Madhavendra Puri's disappearance day. He ran from his fame, you know. Lord Krishna, Gopinath, he stole some sweet rice for Madhavendra and hid it behind his cloth, so he could taste it. It was such wonderful sweet rice. And when it became Madhavendra knew that, he was ecstatic. But he knew, oh, now I'm going to become real famous. So he ran away from that. When the time he got to Jagannath Puri, the fame had preceded him, and everyone was adulating. Oh, Krishna reciprocated with you so much. So this is the mood of a devotee. You see it in Prabhupada, you know. He was always glorified. Don't worship me, worship Krishna. All the other yogis say, oh, worship me. I am God. Is it? Because Prabhupada is successful, they all went by the wayside. Okay, if you have no more comments or questions, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you. Now we'll have a little more kirtan and the Sunday feast.